Ladies and gentlemen,
So, Elkia, I'm the vice president of the Elkia Foundation, and we're pretty much here to kind of give everyone an introduction to our foundation and the interesting things that we're trying to do for the community and see how everyone here can actually get involved and kind of help us spread this message that we're trying to push forward and trying to do positive in the community as a whole. And it doesn't have to be in our local area. We're trying to actually expand into other things as well. So we also want to touch base on entrepreneurship. We want to touch base on some financial planning. So we kind of have a little bit of hodgepodge of a lot of things that both myself and Jeff has been getting into the last couple of years. And also during COVID, we've gained a lot of new skills. So we kind of wanted to have an interesting conversation about, the community and how we're pushing forward, especially when it comes to like sustainability and financial planning, resources for Black and Brown people. So a lot of interesting things we have on our belt tonight. So we look forward to hearing what questions everyone has and sharing some information that we have as well.
Yeah, it's not, you're going to be covering a lot of grounds today. A lot of grounds.
Somewhat.
So to begin, can you each give us a little bit of your backgrounds, like any schooling or anything like that?
Well, I'm a Howard graduate, so I'm a Bison. HU.
Yeah.
So our great female vice president is also Bison. So I think HBCUs is getting a lot of prep right now.
Yes.
So, and I also actually have a master's in environmental studies, environmental management from Ashford. So I have a couple of different degrees under my belt, but that's pretty much, graduated from Howard, actually been in finance for about 15 years now. I'm gonna age myself a little bit. So since I graduated Howard, I've basically been in the financial industry, working for a lot of big corporations. I've scaled it down a little bit now that I'm actually working for a smaller corporation, but a lot of work still, and trying to venture into the environmental management side of it. And kind of this is where the foundation and everything else kind of comes into play.
Great. And you, Jeff?
Yeah, well, I have a electrical engineering degree. I have an electrical engineering background.
Give a round of applause. Electrical engineer. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been an electrical engineer a long time. I've probably worked as one for 17 years. I know, I got it pretty much right after I left the military. I also have a military background, and, I've spent some extensive time overseas and done some interesting things. On that note, the United States Navy, by the way, okay. And right now I'm a financial advisor / financial planner. So I help a lot of people in our community, just regarding, their finances. And particularly assets versus liabilities, trying to increase the amount of assets people have to increase their wealth for the future. I think COVID last year taught us a whole lot. I think it was a good wake up call for a lot of us.
I agree.
Where we realized that a lot of the toys that we purchase every day and attain every day, it doesn't mean anything. In tangible times, you need tangible assets. You need stuff that is growing for you and working on your behalf. So that's what we're putting together here, in the Elkia Foundation. I'm excited for what we're doing because this is about giving back. I've got an electrical engineering degree. I've had a successful career, so is Elkia. But now it's time in our lives and time in everybody's lives to actually give back.
Yes, in my opinion, I think 2020 was like 2020. We got that 2020 vision. Now a lot of us we see what it is that, or should I say, our purpose. I think I know what my purpose is, and that's not to be working for.
What's that? I like to hear
Not
that.
to be working for certain people anymore. You know, working for myself. You know what I mean? We can do it. We can do it.
Yes.
We can do it.
Yes. And all the tools are there. All the tools are there. It's a matter of whether we use it and whether, how committed we are to using those tools. So, and this is what we want to promote. This is what we want to teach.
Yeah. So basically we're trying to, for instance, you hit the nail on the head. It's like, how do we kind of go forward, especially when it comes to so many issues that we have in our community right now, especially African Americans. The income gap that we're facing right now is so wide that, I think there's a statistics that says it might take us 200 years to even catch up. So it's like, how do you get that ball rolling? Because you can't always, look at what the past is doing, but you kind of have to look at what forward thinking is. And how do we change the narrative of what hasn't been working and change it to a different perspective to show, that something has to work. Like, the old narrative is just not being able to push us forward, especially where we are right now. We're so stuck in this, business of lack of resources, of lack of everything in the Black and Brown community. And as well, we have, a lot of issues going on in America right now that needs to be addressed. But what we're trying to tackle is to say, okay, how do we go forward? How do we push that forward agenda and look at how we can get our community financially stable, as Jeff was talking about with the financial planning. What I'm trying to do is pretty much sustainable development, is actually get Black and Brown people into thinking about reusable resources and being a sustainable lifestyle so that we can actually maintain what we have for our kids and their future kids.
Perfect. A question along those lines. As far as getting us educated and knowledgeable about these type of things, do you think that there's a system in play that is keeping a lot of us Black and Brown people from being aware of these resources and things that we can do to improve ourselves as a community and things like that?
I don't think that there's necessarily something keeping us back, but we're not taking the necessary avenues to educate ourselves. I mean, there's tons of information out there, tons of it. It's just, I think that the feedback that I get from a lot of individuals is that they don't know where to find it. They don't know where to go. Even though you can Google everything these days, people still have no idea how to access that resource. So, I mean, there's a lot of governmental programs out there that people have no idea that they even qualify for, and to a certain extent, that without that education and without that knowledge, they would have no idea. Because sometimes, as I said, even though you can Google everything, you have to know how the right way to Google it, right? Because you can just Google misinformation, millions of things pop up, but you don't really understand where to look at. So I think there's plenty of resources out there. It's just, how do we change the narrative and change the mindset instead of, I think, like, I'm going to get into the materialistic portion of a lot of people these days. I think COVID taught us a lot, that a lot of, as Jeff said, a lot of these materials that we held so valuable are no longer valuable. In the Black and Brown community, we hold Nikes and sneakers and Jordans more valuable than a college education and a bank account or an investment account. So we're trying to figure out, how do you change that narrative? Because the resources are there. It's just, how do we now click that button to say, okay, let's think about an investment instead of going and buying another pair of Jordans, or going and buying a Maybach instead of actually investing in something that's an asset than a liability. We need to teach that. And the thing of that, I think a lot of also is like, our families didn't get taught that. So how do you expect that education to be trickled down? And that's kind of where we're trying to kind of be in that interactive sense, is like, how do we go from where we are right now to where we want to be and connect those dots?
Great. So can you give us a little insight of what steps you both or have taken to try to get us to connect those dots as far as with your foundation?
Yeah, so for my foundation, we've actually kind of started out very small. For the last couple of years, we've been trying to help out community-wise and trying to, do certain outreach programs in the community. I've actually sent donations to Jamaica. They had a flood a couple of months ago that pretty much washed away an entire town. So we helped them out in that. I've sent some supplies to Venezuela as well. There is a huge crisis there and still happening right now that, everybody has forgotten about since COVID hit. But there's so many things going on. We do a lot of things in the background that sometimes we don't actually share on Facebook or even online. So we've done a lot of little outreach, but now we're actually trying to change that and turn it into something a little bit more sustainable. So that's where I kind of want to mend my finance degree with the environmental side of it and go towards sustainability. So we're trying to build sustainable developments with the interaction of improvement of the person. So basically self-sustainability as well. So we're going to give you the resources to basically get to where you need to be. So if you come in to our facility on, welfare or something like that, we will basically get you from there to where you need to be working, either having your own business, giving you those resources that you need to actually be able to survive and get rid of this, generational curse that we have in some of our communities where we're just continuously pushing that cycle of, being on social assistance and that's what it is for 10 generations.
So, Jeff, I understand you're on the financial side of things. What are you bringing forth as far as with the Elkia Foundation? And I don't know why I said it wrong, but
yeah, it's okay.
Happens all the time.
But
I know you though, so I don't understand why I said that.
Well, one thing that we noticed, when we started the foundation was, helping out a lot of the locals, and particularly like homeless and feeding the hungry and doing those type of things and even Christmas gift giving and those type of things with families. And, what we noticed was it's not always a financial problem that we have, in our communities. We don't always have that. In our communities, we have an education problem, right? The finances in some places in our community are flowing pretty well. It's just that they're spending it on the wrong type of things. And so if education, listen, if you leave $1 million, right, for your children, and your children are not educated properly on finances, then $1 million will end in that generation, right? Yes. But if they're properly educated and you leave $1 million, the next generation after that will have $5 million. You see what I'm saying? And that's how it grows from generation. People don't necessarily understand generational wealth. So I think in combination to gift giving, in combination to helping, the hungry and everything like that, that's great. But we're also educating people on finances, giving them financial literacy and implementing that into the community, because that's very important, especially with the children. If children if your children sit there and watch you struggle with your credit and watch you struggle with your finances and get into bad financial habits, well, guess what? When they grow up, they do the same thing. They get married, they do the same thing with their spouses, and it goes on. So what I'm bringing to the table with that is the financial literacy piece, right? Financial education, financial literacy, understanding that, God forbid something happens to, a spouse or a child or, whatever the case, that, hey, there's money left behind. That person has a life insurance policy, right? We're not having fish fries and cookouts to try to raise money, to bury somebody. We're not leaving the next generation with just debt. We're leaving the next generation with wealth. It's out there.
While you're out there trying to educate a lot of us on financial literacy, do you come upon a lot of resistance, or just, due to ignorance, like, my parents didn't have this, they turned out fine, whatever, I'm okay, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm not extremely comfortable, but I'm okay. So do you see that there's a lot of resistance from people because of that mindset?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Most of the time, what we're seeing in this generation, especially with blacks, so we're probably maybe second generation of blacks where we're somewhat privileged, right? In the white community, they've been privileged for generations now, right? So that 16-year-old that had a brand new, that white kid who was a 16-year-old who had a brand new Mustang and crashed it and didn't care about it, they've been dealing with that for a long time. We're getting into the generation now in our community where we have teenage kids with that same new Mustang, and they're crashing it and not caring about it. Meaning our kids now are a lot better off than we had. They have a lot more things than we had growing up, right? Our kids don't ride buses anymore like we did. Our kids don't walk to school anymore like we did, right? So as a result, they become entitled, and they don't necessarily, they just get caught up with the things. So I walk into, a lot of times when I talk to guys about, let's say, life insurance, for instance, a guy say, hey, listen, I'm 30 years old. I'm good. Right. And I'm like, okay, I guess 30-year-olds don't die. They're immortal. So, you know what I mean? So it's those are the type of things that we don't understand, because life insurance, instrument like life insurance is not just about death. It's about investing and protecting your income. It's about protecting your family. Listen, I'm a product of the product. My father passed away when I was 12 years old. Back then in the 80s, life insurance, blacks didn't even think about life insurance back then. I struggled mightily. That's why I went to the military, actually, to get money for my family. And so I understand that process, But today we have education, we have tools in place where that doesn't ever have to happen again, right? And there's a lot of ethnicities in this country that have gained wealth strictly through life insurance.
Mm-hmm. And I also want to add to that. I think that a lot of the resistance you actually do get sometimes, is financial. When you think about trying to plan for the future, I think everybody thinks it's so expensive, especially, during COVID. The whole investment thing. I'm in finance. I've been in finance for years, right? And I don't know everything that when it comes to trying to build certain things. And we're getting educated as much as everybody else that we're educating ourselves. We learn things new every single day. Stock market, for instance, I've been trying to get my friends into the investment game because, you realize that you don't need $1 million to invest, but you can start small and build that up. But I think once people think about the stock market, once you think about insurance, once you start thinking about those things that can actually give you some kind of residual back, it's an interest back to you. But our thing is that we don't think that long term. As Jeff says, you pass away, that person that's 30 years old is like, why do I need life insurance? Because for what? But then if you pass away, your parents, as he said, is doing a fish fry to try to even bury you, which is, it's kind of a catch-22 that you don't even think about certain things that's inevitable. You always want to think about the now, but which is okay, but you also have to plan for the future. And also, our parents taught us to be workhorses, Jeff and I, we were just both talking about our degrees. That's what we were taught. That's how we were taught to say, this is how you fit into that system. We're trying to change those mindset because now at 40, we've learned certain lessons that both of us are trying to get out of corporate America. So
She's
are
40,
you.
by the way.
Myself, right?
Just letting everybody know.
All right, I got a question. Do you guys have a targeted age group, or you talk to anybody?
I think like we think about it way too young, and we were having this discussion. I have discussions sometimes with my friends. It's like, if we knew what we knew now at 20, we would be so much better off. So what we're trying to do is to try to teach the younger generation that, listen, you can do so many little things that can build, interest. I mean, that's what you want. You want something that's going to pay you. That's what the rich people do. They sit back. They don't have jobs. They make their money work for them. And unfortunately, Black and brown people learn those skills too late in life. And, we're trying to make sure that that doesn't happen with future generations to come. It's like, how can we stop that lack of knowledge, that ignorance within this community, to kind of push it forward and teach us those things that are important, and how we can build that residual income, how we can get that income on the side. And if you do have a job, which is perfectly okay, because having a job is additional income, but you always want to build something else. And how do we motivate people to do that? That's kind of what our new strategy is going to be going forward. And how do we rethink the future?
We have a few questions coming through on Mixcloud. Anyways, how y'all doing tonight? Y'all all right?
Hey guys.
Once again, just want to say we're glad to have y'all on here.
Thanks for joining, everybody that joined tonight.
My question was, how do you target people? Like, do you have a certain age group you're after, or is anybody you talk to, could be anybody?
Actually, for our community outreach, we target everyone. So the sustainable community that I'm actually looking forward to building will be able to pretty much help any disenfranchised group. So if it's a teenager out there that has been bouncing around from home to home, if it's a homeless veteran, if it's a homeless individual, if it's a battered woman, we don't discriminate like whatsoever. And I think that from any age group, even a 60-year-old right now, I mean, the retirement age, they keep bumping it up. So now it's at like 72. At 60, you're still trying to figure out how you're going to retire. So you still need help. You still need assistance. How are you going to take the pension that you're going to be making, as whatever little it is that you're going to get? How are you going to stretch that and make it work now that you have no income? And how are you going to educate that little kid to start a bank account and actually be able to build their credit and maintain that credit? And try to figure out, how do you beat the system that wants you to be in debt from the time that you're literally out of school to the time that you die? So how do you actually avoid that and try to live, to try to curtail those things? So we don't discriminate on age. Everyone is accessible, and we're able to assist everyone within this new realm that we're trying to go towards. And I think, like, when it comes to environmental issues as well, it's very important. Thanks to you for inviting us to this podcast. And we're trying to actually start our own to try to invite people into this new world of sustainability and African American community as well.
Great. Correct me if I'm wrong, but when we're talking about the investing in ourselves, I think we live in an era of instant gratification. So I think that, a lot of us, when we hear investing and long-term and residual, it doesn't really connect with us, because we don't see that as being instantaneous. Like, for us, I'm going to put this money in, and then, immediately I'm going to see your results. I think a lot of us, they want that instant gratification now, rather as waiting 5, 10, 15, 20 years. Am I correct in saying that?
True, but there's ways that you can get instant gratification off of the stock market. It's called put in stock options if you're educated enough to realistically know what you're doing. You have a lot of big boys that actually make millions of dollars off the stock market. I mean, everybody, I think, let's go to the GameStop situation, a couple weeks ago or a couple months ago. People could have made millions off of that if they just realistically understood what they could have done, which is what a lot of people have done.
But And I get Elkia, and that's fine, but for the most part, you want to teach the majority of the people that, there's mid to longer term view, right? So this is, you're 100% correct. We live in an age where, we type something in our cell phone, we want an answer right away, right? If our audio isn't working on our computer, then we're freaking out.
Shut the whole thing down.
Right? So we live in an age where we have so many options, right? Where, if I don't want to go to this restaurant tonight, I could just go to the restaurant across the street and get my food, in 5 minutes, right? This is the whole reason why fast food restaurants are all over the place, and they're open 24 hours a day now. So everything is about instant gratification. But if we understand and we have a long-term vision, right, and we understand how things are, and we get assets that grow, I tell you what, we could end, poverty in literally one generation.
Yeah.
Literally one generation. Yes, everybody, people talk about, cryptocurrency and all that stuff is great. All of those things are fantastic, but we have to understand there's a small percentage of people that's going to make a lot of money. There's a large percentage of people that's going to lose a lot of money. But if you're patient, everybody can have an opportunity to do well. So I think, just with everybody having a longer term view, which is not so long term, but a longer term vision with a bigger goal. Yes, it could be.
I got a question. How do you? Well, let me read these ones off Mixcloud first. I got how do you engage the younger generation? How much life insurance is a good amount to have, and do you recommend having insurance on your kids?
Oh man, that's a fantastic question, right? So everybody's personal situation is different. I always suggest you have at least 7 to 10 times your income, right? So especially when you start talking about you have kids. For instance, if you have a 6-year-old child, you're married and your youngest kid is 6, right? And so that you want to bring that kid at least through college, which is probably around age 22, right? So you have 16 years, right, where, you want to be able to protect that kid, right? Because remember what life insurance, the definition of life insurance is income protection, right? Meaning if I make $50,000 a year and I'm no longer here to make $50,000 a year, right? I need something else to protect that income. So you have $50,000 a year times 16 years. That's the amount of life insurance that you actually need, right? So because you want to be able to cover your kid, not just for your burial, but you want to be able to cover your kid where your kid could actually go to college, right? And be able to do what, they need to do, whether they open up a business, whether they go to college, and able to sustain themselves. So that's a great question. And should kids get life insurance at a young age? Absolutely. Absolutely. The reason, yes, because, there are tons of life insurance policies that are equity building. They have cash value. They grow their assets. So it's like a house. You purchase a house and you have a 30-year mortgage on it or whatever. But, that develops equity, and that's wealth for the kid, right? So your kid could end up using that money for college. Your kid could use that money when they're 30 years old to buy their first home. There's tons of nice things. And by the way, you get nice tax breaks on those.
Great
as well.
tax breaks on it.
So these are all tools that are out here and available. And not only that, the number one thing with getting it with your kid is that you lock your kid's health at that time. So there are tons of people out there that are getting terminal illnesses, unfortunately. So now cancer is something that's a common thing now, right? When I was growing up, only elderly people had that stuff. But now you're starting to see people in their 20s and 30s.
Imagine COVID.
Exactly, especially with COVID. So people who are having this now, and they can't get life insurance coverage after they get diagnosed with this. Nobody wants to cover them. But if they were locked in since they were younger, it doesn't matter what they go through in their health, they're always going to have coverage. So this is what's important. You lock down the kid's health, one, and you're able to create wealth for that kid at an early age.
Yeah, and for the adults, you're actually able to do a lot of tax benefits with the insurance side, which is actually something that I learned myself this year, is that I could actually do, I can protect some of my earnings from taxability because of the insurance coverages, which is a way a lot of rich people actually hide their money.
How the rich stay rich. Do you advise them having a separate policy or on it to rider?
Always a separate policy. Always a separate policy. Well, the riders are good, but the problem is once they become 18, that's it, right? You don't want them to own their policy. You could pay for the policy, right? And you could own it for them on their behalf, right? And then when they become of age, after college, 22, 23 years old, you give it to them as a gift and let them pay for it. And at that point, they have an asset. They have the equity. They have an asset that they can use for collateral. They could take a loan against it. They could take the cash, X amount of percentage out of that. It's an asset that you give to them, right?
Yeah. So I think when a lot of people think about the life insurance, they just think about, death, but it can be so much more.
Yeah, I think that kind of throws a lot of us from getting insurance on our kids, because that's something we don't want to think about,
Yes.
But it's something we have to
You have to, yes.
Yeah, remember, it is. It does have a death benefit, but 83% of life insurance policies out there, most people outlive, to be honest, especially the term policies. They outlive them, right? So your kid definitely they're going to outlive any policy. But if you get them a permanent policy that covers them for life, again, it's like owning a house at a very young age, and they're putting money in there, and that money is just growing and growing and growing and growing. And the life, the death benefit is just an added bonus, and God forbid if something happens, but that's, this is not the case. But the reality is, unfortunately, we all do need to be covered because we just never know as well. I mean, listen, we walk around, I have an iPhone here. I pay $18 a month on insurance on the phone. I've had an iPhone probably for 10 years. I've never not once used the insurance.
It's kind of crazy because a lot of people, I'm not sure if Ron knows my story, but, life is very much not guaranteed. So, a couple of years I was in an accident, literally sitting in the back of an Uber. Someone smacked into the Uber and I broke 4 bones in my neck. I have a metal plate in there now. My life could have been, my doctor told me literally 4 more centimeters and I would have probably been either dead or paralyzed for life. So, I'm going along my merry way thinking that everything is okay. I had I had no policy. I had no will, like absolutely nothing. So it's like you just don't even think about it because you're like, well, those type of things will never happen. But life throws everything at you. So, why not be prepared, especially if you have children? You don't want to have your kids just having to sit there and pay for your debt after you're gone. And how are they going to survive now trying to push themselves out of debt from taking care of you? And then they're trying to push forward in their lives. So it's like people never think about that. But, COVID just happened like that as well. Things happen and can change so easily.
Yes, that's what a lot of us need to acknowledge, that tomorrow can be totally different from today. Trust me, I know it's crazy.
Yes.
Yeah, but but you know what? If you survive through tomorrow and that's a God-given blessing, that's fine, right? So then you still have an asset that's growing for you, right? So either way, right? God forbid something happened to us yesterday, our families are covered for the next generation, right? And if we survive to today, like we are, we're living right now, and we're thankful to God about that. Guess what? You have an asset that's working for you. When you sleep, that asset is still generating money. And this is what we need to, it's very simple. When they asked Warren Buffett about wealth, Warren Buffett said something very interesting. Warren Buffett didn't make his first $1 billion until he was 51 years old, which is quite interesting. Warren Buffett said, LeBron James is a great basketball player. He's talented. He said, Bill Gates is a genius of a guy. Steve Jobs, the late Steve Jobs, genius guys, invented the computer. He says, me, I just bought assets and accumulated those assets. I didn't do anything special. And that's very simple. He says, hey, the difference between the more wealthy and the people who struggle is the more wealthier people have assets. The others who are not as wealthy have liabilities, and there's a clear difference. That's all.
Wow.
It's just that simple.
That makes sense. Never looked at it that way either.
Yes.
That's true.
That's really true. Well, so tell me, how do you guys get your message out? I mean, what all are you doing right now, like, to get it out there? Do you have anything, fundraisers, anything going on that we could tell the people about?
So right now we've been laying low a little bit because we're kind of trying to put together our master plan. And as I think I mentioned before, our ultimate goal is to start developing sustainable communities and start looking at pretty much a community where it's not even future thinking, because there's a lot of other countries doing it. It's just not present in America. And these are communities that are completely 100% sustainable. Everything in the community itself is reusable, recyclable. It's getting into that mental attitude that we're trying to lessen our carbon footprint. I think I also mentioned earlier that I have my master's in environmental management. So we're trying to push forward that now new thinking. And also incorporate a community center in each of these developments that can offer the knowledge that Jeff just dropped on us about insurance. And we're trying to, teach people about investments and trying to accumulate these little small things that can actually add value in the future. But you just have to change that mentality. So, look forward to our communications on our website. We also have Instagram, we have Facebook, the elkiafoundation.org. So you can check us out on any of those mediums to see what's coming up. We're kind of working in the background now and trying to get funding and trying to figure out what our next move is. Trying to get property and trying to figure out how do we push our vision. I think a lot of people understand that when something is so brand new, you don't have a lot of support behind it. And we're
Correct.
trying to build that support now, because a lot of people are not thinking that way, because big developments are actually, there, but we're trying to see how we can actually push our footprint there into that big development world and get Black and brown people into that mental attitude of actually lessen our carbon footprint. Like, we don't even think about it at all. We don't think about recycling. We don't even think about anything like that. But your kids are here, and you have to figure out how are they going to survive when you're gone, or even your grandkids and your kids' kids after that. So that's kind of what we have upcoming. We also have some other things when it comes to entrepreneurship as well. Jeff is getting into the financial insurance as well. We're also trying to have a juice bar and restaurant that we're also working on to try to get into that healthy environment, healthy eating, push that consciousness out there, that you can actually be sustainable and still, live that good lifestyle, basically. So Stay tuned, our Instagram, our Facebook,
culture.
our Twitter.
Yeah, it's like you guys are really doing a lot of things. Is this going to be challenging for you to have all these different components gel together into your foundation?
To me, it actually goes together, because I think right now, I feel like the way that programs are set up, they are a little bit too cookie cutter. And I don't like that cookie cutter mentality because I think that everyone is different. So the way that we're going to design our communities is basically we're going to cater to the individual. We're going to look at each person's entire family being and try to figure out how do we take that from the beginning to the end. So we are trying to do a lot, but it's kind of they all make sense together. So when it comes to the healthy eating, it ties into that sustainability side of it. When it comes to environmental living, it comes to the community side of it. So, we're trying to educate as well. And that's what we're going to start doing with, kind of a podcast, kind of an informative series to kind of educate Black and Brown people to how they can actually get into these things, how they can find out more information until we start getting our platform together to be able to offer it to everyone.
Just want y'all to know that I'm down with what y'all doing. So if y'all have any events or anything going on, let me know. Definitely let me know.
We still have our event every Christmas. Because of COVID last year, I kind of did it on the, a little bit smaller. So we do actually have our Christmas event every year. We still do outreach. You can always donate on our Facebook and through our Instagram as well. We're accepting donations all year round. So even though it's not posted online or anything like that, we still help individuals, individual families. So if I get some, if one of my contacts come to us and say this is needed or that's needed, we definitely step in and do that. But we're just trying to push forward with our new agenda in getting, the sustainability side of it up and running. But we need to kind of do our legwork in the background and try to build that platform. I think, you guys have a podcast. It's like trying to manage the social media is a little bit different than managing the business. Yes. And we kind of have to be able to balance those two aspects of it.
True. Do you have a targeted starting point, like your city, your community? Where would that be? Like, where would your focus be on?
Our focus is realistically Miami for right now, but our vision can be taken anywhere, literally anywhere in the world. But our focus right now is going to try to be Miami. I mean, you do have a lot of issues in Miami when it comes to housing, affordable housing. It's very hard to come by. I mean, we know that the income gap in Miami is ridiculous, and as it is in some other places. And trying to even home ownership is not possible for many people here. So we're trying to figure out how can we introduce our concept because it is affordable housing. But, how do we break through all of the barriers that we have right now, which is what we're trying to do is the political barriers, it's a lot.
Well, like Jeff said earlier, that there is a lot of money flowing in these communities. How do you get people to redirect their focus or just get better values and not dumping all this money in the strip clubs and the clubs and in those places, but in places that actually mean something that we could get a return from and build up the youth and the younger generation?
Yeah, it starts in platforms like this, right? So in platforms like this, what you guys are doing is tremendous, right? And that's just getting the word out. And so it's educating people because there's some people that simply they just don't know, right? Like you had some great questions here tonight. With your audience had some great questions about kids and with policies and assets, of course. Those are things we don't know. Nobody's taught us this, right? You speak to most people and say, hey, I have insurance in my job. Well, what happens when your job lays you off? Right? Yeah. What happens when, God forbid you pass away, and you're not working, right? Because some of those jobs, they have policies where it's covered if you're doing work and you pass away. But if you pass away on a skiing trip when you was on vacation, they're not covering that.
You're paying for that.
Nobody told you that because it's not your policy. It's your employer's policy. You see what I'm saying? So you need to walk around with your own policy. right?
Yep.
And if your policy is an asset, well, just follow the rules. If you have more assets than liabilities, you're a step ahead when it comes to getting wealth, right? So you want to get your kids' assets as soon as possible. You want to get more assets in your portfolio as soon as possible. This is education. This is not a lack of money. I mean, this is not, tons of money. We sit here and pay $200 a month for cable. We don't have a problem for that. We go out to bars and restaurants and we spend, tons of money on Fridays, Saturday nights, any given night, sometimes, a drink, 2 drinks could get you the policy for the month, right? That covers your life and generational
lap
wealth.
dance.
Yeah,
exactly.
So that's kind of the re-education, I think, that comes with, our platform and yours. Is just like, how do you re-educate and how do we get the attention, and start these conversations and not having to do some, tricks, hips, and whatever it is to get that viral video on TikTok or on Instagram or wherever it is. It's like, we're trying to find that balance. Is how do we communicate this and make it interesting, so we're trying to work on those platforms now. Is like, how do we grasp that attention and realistically, shape people to say, hey, this is necessary, especially in our community, because just a little while ago, they tried to raise the income gap, right, to $15 an hour. Rich people shot that down. There was a reason why, so we're trying to figure out how do we get that attention and raise that awareness without having to do tricks and all this other stuff. So it's a balance, social media, it's a balance.
Yeah. I don't know. Go ahead, Ron.
We have another question. Is it too late to get an affordable policy if you are diagnosed with something?
Yeah, no, that's a great. You guys asked some great questions. No, it's not too late.
That's a question from one of our watchers, our listeners.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, no, it is definitely not too late. Sometimes depending on the condition, right, and depending on how long they've had that condition. Yeah, there's always situations where they could be covered. Typically, a lot of times, what that limits is the amount of coverage, right? So sometimes if you were just diagnosed with something, to get $1 million policy will be quite expensive. But to get smaller policies, $100,000, $200,000, there's because there are a lot of policies where they don't need any underwriting. There's a lot of meaning they're not doing much of a background check or medical check. There's some small policies where that's the case. So definitely it's not too late.
So but
it's important that we lock it in as early as possible.
So would you advise getting multiple policies if that was the situation?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. You could get multiple policies, definitely. If it works for you and your budget, absolutely. When I talk to people, everybody has different budgets. They tell me, hey, this is how much I have to spend and I want to be covered. And I typically try to find them a coverage that suits their family needs.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah. So it's never too late. Never too late. Just like investing, it's never too late. Everybody say, well, how soon could we invest? Is it too late? We missed the wave. There's never too late. It's like saying there's endless amount of water in the Atlantic Ocean. So if you sit there and take 100,000 gallons out today, it's never too late. You could go back tomorrow and get some more. No problem.
I like that analogy. That's a good one.
For real.
All right, like we have another question up here.
It goes, if the income gap is increased, what happens to the people in the middle? The rich are already rich. People receiving minimum wage get an increase. So what happens to those in the middle? Does it go up for them as well? Before you answer, I'm just going to say they've been saying this for the longest. The rich are going to keep getting richer and the poor get poor. And they're eradicating the middle class. So you're going to either be with the rich or with the poor.
And I think, the middle class can also, because I think with the middle class, you can make a lot of things work with a little bit of rearrangement. I think everything is possible. You just have to have a little bit of discipline. So whichever class that you're in, you can always work out a plan and try to figure out how to get there. It's just to figure out how you can actually fit it into your world and to how you operate on a daily basis. So anything is possible, regardless of where you are in the income scale. If you're dirt poor, you can dig yourself out of that. And if you're in the middle, you can climb that ladder if you want to, and you probably have a better opportunity of doing it than the person that is on the other, level. So it's never too late. And you can start at any levels of income when it comes to insurance, when it comes to investing, when it comes to, entrepreneurship, when it comes to everything. You just have to have a plan.
I admire you guys' positive outlook. It's like nothing we say dampens your guys' spirit. And I like that. Another thing I do like is the fact that you did mention that you guys are doing things behind the scenes where most people are only doing things in the community if there's a camera on them. You know what I'm saying? So when you told me what you was doing, I was like, okay, this is for real. This is serious and not just trying to do it.
And you have to realize that some people, the people that we're helping out, some people are homeless. Some people are in situations that they don't want to make public. I mean, you have to respect that. So, of course, a lot of people have told me you have to post it. You have to post it because this is how people are going to understand you. But no, I don't, because I have to respect that person and I have to respect their situation. So if there is a thing that, we're just doing it in the background. But that's the thing with, as I said, is just how do you change that narrative today that everything has to be publicized for it to be recognized, right? So, if it's not on social media, that means it's not happening. And that's not always true.
Correct.
Yeah. I had something. I had a question for both of you guys.
Mm-hmm.
At what point did you realize this was what you wanted to do? I mean, I know you guys have degrees and titles, but at what point you decided, okay, I want to do something to give back? When did it hit you? What was that moment?
From my side of it, I've pretty much been doing this my entire life. I've just kind of, amped up the scale a little bit. So I've always, helped out people in any way, shape, or form that is needed. It's just my personality is just driven in me. It's just what it is. But my accident kind of took that mentality and, turned it up 100%, because I realized that there's no time like the present. We always talk about that we're going to do, and, we'll do it tomorrow. Tomorrow comes and something always happens and it never gets done. So my accident kind of pushed that into gear to say, you know what, this is the time to change the narrative. This is the time to figure out what you want to do. I've been safe in finance for 15 years. I have a great career. I don't need to switch if I don't want to. But at the same time, I'm a believer in progression. I'm a believer that you have to be able to be better than yourself 5 years ago. And I want everybody to have that same passion. And I want everybody to have that same ability. Like, you don't have to be a millionaire, but you just need to be comfortable, and I want to see us Black and brown people getting out of this idea that 200 years from now that we're still stuck where we are, and it can be so much different if we just click on that little mentality and change certain things about what we do and what we value. We can be so much better. So that's my motivation, is just like, when I see certain things, I'm like, there has to be somewhere that we can stop talking about, this crisis that is going on with us, and how do we keep from going backwards and backwards and backwards.
And you, Jeff?
This is my ministry. I'm heavy into my faith, and being a Christian, I just feel like this is my duty. We're talking about stewardship, so I'm always, in the words of King Solomon, he says we need to be thinking about our children's children. So I'm never just thinking about Friday, or Friday's payday or something like that. I'm always thinking about my children's children. I'm always thinking about future generations and legacy. So this is my ministry. So I just I'm passionate about it. And, I just want to spread that good word to everybody that everybody can do it, regardless of your situation, regardless of your talent, regardless of whatever. We all can have a piece of that pie.
Great. We have another question for you guys. Camille asked, for a young adult just starting their career, what kind of policy would you recommend? Whole life or term?
Well, I could speak to them separately about that. We could talk about the whole planning, but it's just to summarize it. Term, you're renting insurance for a period of time, right? It's a lot cheaper, right? So just imagine you're renting an apartment, right? And then permanent policy or whole life is you're buying a home, right? So depends on your situation. It may be better for you to rent it, right? Or to buy it, right? So everybody's a little bit different. I'll have to talk to that, younger person. But I like buying my house. You got to listen. You got to live somewhere, right?
Assets.
So some people can't afford to buy a house, right? Some people say I need to rent right now, and in 5 years I could buy the house. Either way, it's good, right? But just understand the whole life is an asset. The whole life is an asset that you have. The term life is not necessarily an asset at the moment because you're renting. But either way, it's good. Either way.
Do you think insurance is the easiest asset to obtain? Like if you,
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. It's the only thing that you can attain from a baby, right? When your baby is born today, the baby can't buy an Apple stock, right? They can't buy a stock until they're 18, right? You could own the stock and say this is for my kid, but no. When you from birth, you could give that baby a policy, and that's an asset that belongs to that baby. So absolutely, it's one of the easiest assets to attain, and it's the most sustainable one. It's the only one that guarantees a payout.
Yeah.
So yeah. So at the end of the game, it's what it is. You either outlive the policy, in which you get paid out when you hit 100+ years old, or we don't make it to 100 in our next of kins, and next generation gets it. Either way, it's definitely an asset.
You don't have to wait for 100.
No, you don't have to wait for 100. But what I'm saying is, eventually,
Yes, don't have to wait for 100.
you
saying
collect
that
100% of it.
pardon me. There are policies where you can take the money out, right? Like even though you're not
Of course.
without
It builds
canceling the
equity.
policy. Can you take that equity and use that for other things, like put into the stock market and flip that, or buy a house with that? Would
That's
you be able
yours.
to put that money?
Yeah, it's just like you're buying a house, and you take the equity out of the house. You could use it for whatever you want, whether it's rebuilding a kitchen, whether it's buying a boat, doesn't matter. Whether it's investing it. It's non-taxable. Yeah, it's non-taxable.
It's not like how when you do your 401k and you pull it out, you have to be taxed on it.
Yeah.
This way, it's actually not taxed.
But
Yeah.
you would have to pull that out from the actual insurance company, or is that something you go to the bank with your policy? Say, I have this policy. Can I take out money against it?
The insurance company will give you the money. They could give you a loan against that money if you want, that you don't even have to pay back, but you can pay it back if you want. It's your money. Or you could just use it as collateral. Like, if you're going to buy a house and you have that policy, you could have the insurance company print you out a certificate for that policy, and you could use it as collateral, just as if you had some stock that had value, and you could show them that, and that could be collateral. Absolutely. So it could be yours, no problem. You can't take 100% of it out, but you could take 90%.
Every Friday I learn something new. I do. I always do.
Every day I learn something.
Yeah, every day.
But definitely Fridays.
The IRS says you need to leave about 5 to 7% in there for the death benefit, so you could take the rest of it out.
And when you recommending policies, are there particular brands, like the big names or the small names, just as effective?
Yeah, actually, and that we could speak about, once they have the contact, they could contact us directly. But yeah, what you always want, you want an A+ company, right? It's kind of like even car insurance, right? Yeah, there's a lot of small companies out there that could do some stuff, but you need to make sure that you have an A+ company that's been around a long time. I'm definitely associated with the A+ company, probably the best company in the country. So you want to be assured when it's time, when you want to collect your money or take your money out to do whatever you want to do with it, you want to make sure that check gets cashed right away. You also want to make sure, God forbid something happens, your family gets that in 2 to 3 business days, tax-free, right? So, you always want to be associated to the big boys. Don't try to cut corners.
Yeah, especially with that. You don't want to do that.
Especially with that. Especially, I'm not affiliated with Geico. Like, I've had Geico. I'm not, promoting them or anything like that. I've had Geico for 20 years. I, drive my car. My daughters have cars and stuff like that. And I pay more money than I probably would with a smaller company. But I know, God forbid, if something happened, I know Geico's right there cutting a check, right? And this is what I want, right? I don't want no questions when stuff happens.
Yeah, you get what you pay for real.
Absolutely.
So they can reach out to you guys if they want some type of financial advising?
Absolutely. Financial advising or financial planning, whatever the case, there's no charge for that. It's just consultation, and we see where you are and we help you and we educate you in that. And if anything, it could be a learning experience. Every time I talk to somebody, it's a learning experience.
And is that part of the foundation? Or is this a separate entity?
Yeah, so it's a part of our program that we're initiating or putting together. So we're going to incorporate, this as well as the credit services and as well as the investment side of it. We're trying to get a whole complete program that can actually help individuals, as we say, sustain and to be able to build. So you can't actually do that without this type of knowledge.
Okay.
And making it fun for kids, and this is not
all ages.
Yeah. People just, this is not boring stuff. This is actually quite exciting. I get excited even talking about this stuff. When, it's just like having something and it just grows, right? And it's even in the stock market, talking to Elkia and stuff, and watching her invest and stuff like that, and just watching stuff grow, right? This is nothing overnight. There's no get rich overnight, stuff. This is the problem. There's too much of that out there today. Try not to, get involved in these trends for the people out there. There's a lot of stuff out there where you're going to lose a lot of money. There's a lot of people claiming to be this and claiming to be that. But if you're educated and you're solid and you have a longer term vision, sky's the limit for you. Sky's the limit.
The long term is what the ultimate goal is, but we can always, you can always build a portfolio on short term as well. So if you have a goal that you want to accomplish within 5 years, 10 years, you can put some time frame to that and put some plan into that. And, it depends on what you're going to do and what your strategy is going to be. So, within our developments, we're actually trying to house people and trying to educate people. So we're kind of giving you that 360 viewpoint of it. Is just it's not about home ownership by itself, but it's about building this particular life where we can actually leave something for, your next of kin and whoever else that your beneficiaries are.
Yeah, this sounds like a great program, a great foundation for real. I don't know how long y'all want to stay on, because I know it's kind of late and we took up a lot of your time with these technical difficulties. So,
okay.
No, but you guys,
it's Friday. As long as the audience have questions, we're here pretty much to answer anything and, educate. And, we can always be reached, as I said, either on our foundation website. I have my personal Instagram. Jeff has his as well. So anyone can follow me at Elkia _ on Instagram or Elkia Smith on Facebook. Yours is?
Mine is Jeff and Joseph. Jeff and for Napoleon, Joseph.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah. So if anyone want to reach out, offer us some resources. I mean, we're willing to, as I said, we're kind of working in the background right now to pretty much get together our programs and trying to get this development going so we can actually start doing, what we want to do in the community and actually have a real benefit that, that can actually last for generations to come.
Cool. I got a question for you, Elkia. You used the word sustainability. Can you break that down in layman's terms for like somebody that has no clue of what you actually mean when you're saying that?
Yeah. So, I mean, right now, I think everyone is hearing about climate change and how, that is affecting us right now. There's so many things going on. One of our biggest situation is basically plastic. How do we either get rid of it or how do we figure out how to make it fit into our lives? So that's one of the biggest thing when it comes to sustainability is to say, how do we get rid of this? How do we actually keep it out of the oceans? How do we actually recycle it? And there's so many different ways that you can actually do that. So when it comes to a sustainability lifestyle or a sustainable mindset is just how can you reuse, that plastic bag that you buy every time you go to Walmart or any store, they junk you up with a whole bunch of plastic. So instead of throwing it in the garbage, why not use that to repurpose and do something else? Or, the onion that you bought, you can actually put that in some water and it regenerates itself. If you're living in a little apartment, you can always actually grow your own food. People don't even think about that. Why go to the grocery store to go get a tomato or thyme when you can actually grow it in your house? So we don't think about those little small things when it comes to lowering our carbon footprint. I mean, recycling alone, you just think about, you throw it in the garbage can, and a lot of times they don't actually recycle anything. It just ends up in the same dump that the regular garbage ends up in. So we're trying to educate people and trying to change that mindset when it comes to that. It's like reuse, recycle. Rethink.
We have another question from Camille. She wants to know if both of you go to church to speak to a group.
Well, we're very different in that aspect, right? So Jeff is that church person. I'm more the spiritual side of it. And he definitely is the church side of it. So he can speak about that.
Is there anywhere,
It's all church.
Yeah. Is there anywhere that you like speak to groups of people and stuff like that?
Yeah, well, we used to, in my church, definitely we used to speak of that. I attend Pembroke Park Church of Christ and the Church of Christ churches, such as Brownsville as well, Church of Christ. So definitely help out a lot of the ministries there. Spoke to a lot of people in those churches and stuff like that. I'm very close with the pastors of those churches. So, definitely that's spreading with the churches. And I would like to spread that ministry throughout a lot more churches. So that's something I'm working on. I just haven't, with COVID, it closed the doors of a lot of churches physically. So now, I've been just looking at kind of church without walls. Right. And just kind of spreading that word out, through different ministries, about financial literacy, because it doesn't matter whether you are in church or outside of the church. Financial literacy is for everyone. And it's just actually not even for black and white, but it's the gap is so far from owned assets for, blacks in comparison to other groups that with blacks, it just needs so much more attention.
Yeah. And I think we're definitely going to explore, the podcast as well, and, doing maybe a YouTube channel upcoming to kind of start doing that educational series, and also kind of, be informative as to what's coming up, especially with the foundation and what we have planned and the education that we can actually give out there. So we're going to do, a podcast series and maybe some YouTube kind of education as well through the foundation.
Good. You got some positive plans going on. I like that.
Yeah. So, there's positive feedback. There's a lot of questions going on. So I like it. So
That's what it's all about. That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
It's really good question. The quality of the questions.
My next question would be, how do you think we reach people and get people to change, just to try to change their mindsets? Because it seems like it's always going to be a certain percentage of people that it's going to want to go to the strip club. It's going to want that alcohol and that type of lifestyle over investing. Because this stuff has been out there for a while, and there is some people out there that's really doing it. Like I try to follow people on Instagram that I see a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of younger generation. They're heavy into the investing and into the crypto, and then you still have that percentage of just they think that it's lame. It's lame to be, like when we were in school, they think you're lame to be smart. You have that percentage of people that's always out there. How do you reach them people?
Yeah, well, it's, you kind of constantly have to drop the seat, meaning, constantly talking to people. And I think what happens with, especially when we talk about, investments and just assets and those type of things, I think a lot of people feel like, well, that's for the person with a finance degree. That's for the smart guy. That's for, no, and that's a total myth, right? So this is about knowing what's out there. Knowing, that say, hey, I get paid $100. What am I going to pay myself today? We all have to look at ourselves like our own business. So the same way we look at, I get paid $100 and I have to pay my light bill and my car note. You need to look at you. I look at Jeff Joseph as his own institution, as a business. I got to pay Jeff Joseph before I pay anybody else. Right. And so once you start paying Jeff Joseph yourself before anybody else, right, over a period of time, if I allocate that money in a place, I'm not going to be the only one working. My business, which is myself, is actually working. That money that I put is working with me. So one day, God forbid, when I can't work or I don't want to work anymore, I still have another entity working for me. So it's just a matter of just educating people enough, because it's, like you said, it's for everybody. There's a tool. And you know what? You could still go out to the bar and do what you need to do. But the question is, did you pay yourself first?
That's good. I still don't even pay myself.
Yeah.
A lot of us don't. A lot of us don't.
It's a habit.
Yeah, it's a habit that we get caught up into, it's that
You get caught up in the rat race.
Paycheck. You get it, you spend it, and it's life, because life catches up to you, and you have so many things going on that you don't want to step back and think about it. But to go back to your question, it's like, how do you get that individual? It's like, well, what are your life goals? What are you striving for? If you do make it to 65, how exactly are you going to survive? How are you going to be able to afford your rent? Or if you're at 50, and God forbid something happens, and if you want to get into something different than where you are, do you have a nest egg to be able to take you into that different, arena without having to worry about where you're going to pay your bills and how you're going to do that? It's just a mechanism to set you up for anything that you want to do. Is you can do it, but you got to change your mentality. It's the mentality first, because we can't work with people who are still wanting to live a certain lifestyle. If they are not open and have goals, it's just not going to work, right?
Well, it's habits. We want to add good habits in the community, right? We're so worried. I'm not the person that believes in, don't do this, don't do that. I believe in if you insert good habits, bad habits go away by default. If you start eating vegetables and you exercise, the bad eating habits and go away. right? If you start investing into yourself, guess what? The bad spending naturally goes away, right? So it's a matter of being a habit. So the very first thing I always tell people, pay yourself first, right? Pay yourself first, even if it's 5%, even if it's 1% of your salary of how much you make, pay yourself. It's not the money at the beginning, it's the habit. Once you develop the habit, then it's easy to say, I'm going to save 5%, or I'm going to save 10%. I'm going to pay myself, right? So it's the habit. You start out with the habit. If you don't have the habit, most people think that making a lottery is going to be the bailout for them. But fact of the matter is 95% of lottery winners are even more broke 5 years later than they were 5 years before they won the lottery.
Wow.
Why? Because the money wasn't the problem.
Bad habits.
It was the bad habits. So even when they got the $100 million, if they never learn how to pay themselves even $1, well, they're not going to pay themselves with $100 million.
That's what's up. And I had a question. I can't remember now. I had a question. I can't remember. It was on the tip of my tongue. Jeez. Oh, okay. For people out there that's watching and that just wants to, what can they take away right now from this podcast and go start? Like if they just, okay, I want to start right now, and they, is there like any books, any videos, anything that you can direct them to get started before they can actually get to you guys, to the foundation? Anything you recommend for anybody?
That's another great question. I think, the first thing, I mean, we don't have any books yet or anything like this. And, I will definitely say the first thing is you look at yourself. Look, I want everybody to look at themselves today, and you should write 3 goals, right? Where do you want to be in 3 years, right? Do you like your job? Do you want to own a business? Do you want to get a savings goal? Whatever that goal is, you set it forth. Why? What this does, this triggers something in your brain to start making you think something past where you are today. This is our problem today in our community. Like we mentioned earlier, short-term gratification, right? So we have the instant gratification. So nobody's thinking long-term. So where do you want to be in 3 years, right? Where's your financial goal? Do you want to buy a house soon? Maybe you don't, right? Do you want your kids to go to college? Do you want to be able to fund your kids to go to college, right? Where do you want to be? You need to write those 3 goals down. And then the next thing after that is start paying yourself. How much could I pay myself? Every time I get paid, wherever I get paid, how much can I pay myself? Just say, hey, I'm going to pay myself $10 every single time I get paid.
Yeah, but paying yourself in a different way, though. It's not like paying yourself and going buying Jordans, or paying yourself and going,
Of course.
It's a different mindset
Yes.
as to,
I would say,
what are those bad habits that are keeping me from actually attaining my goal? Can I cut out that Starbucks coffee for $5 for today and save that and build on that, compound interest and actually grow that within a couple of years, and what tools you can actually put that to make that goal happen. So it's like, everyone has to look at themselves and try to figure out, what are my bad habits? And as Jeff said, what is that goal that I need to get to within a few years, and try to figure out, how do you break that bad habit into paying yourself?
Yeah, there's 3 steps to the financial, right? The key to, just financial literacy, to me anyway, right? So you have the very first step is earn money. Most of us know how to earn money, right? We go out there and work, right? Whatever we do, we work, we cut the grass, we do hair, we go out there and earn money, right? Number 2 is actually, how do you keep most of that money? Right? This is where people typically fail, right? How do you keep most of that money? And the third part, almost nobody makes it there until you get to the 3%, is how do you grow that money? How do you make that money work, right? Most of us, we don't make it to step 3 because we never keep the money, right? Mm-hmm. We're only at step 1. We know how to earn it. And some of us out there are making big salaries. So we're just not talking about the low income people who are making minimum wage here. We're talking about, majority of this country is in debt. We're talking about people who are making six figures as well. They're heavily in debt. Matter of fact, some of them are in worse shape than the lower income because they're living, they may be making $100,000, but they're living like they're, a millionaire.
Yeah, that's something I could never understand. Like these people who make like good salaries and they're struggling as if they're living below the poverty lines.
Yes.
I'm like, what are you really doing wrong? I mean, for you to be in that situation.
But if you look at society always tells you that you have to look the part, even though, you have individuals that don't know where that next dollar is coming from, but, you're out there making it rain because it's just appearance. So you kind of, it's just, as I said, it's just a mentality that has to change. If your mentality can't change, you'll never be able to break those cycles.
I love my people, but I try to. I'm realistic most of the time, and I know that there are certain. I feel that there are some certain demographics of our people that are just like it's a lost cause. How are you guys going to try to reach those type of people? I'm not. Let me not say those type of people, but that demographics of people.
Is it possible to reach them at
Yes.
all?
Is it possible?
Mm-hmm. A lot of those are insecurities. Guys, it's a lot of those are insecurities. And, a lot of it goes back, studying a lot of, let's say African-American history, a lot of those come from, where Black men, were humiliated, in front of their families, where they went through stuff like that. And then now we're at the age where, we could attain some things. And then it's like, wow, look at me, right? I got to wear all this and look like this is because it's like, look at me, I'm successful. So a lot of those are insecurities. I've known people who made little bit of money and then they done something and they made big money and they spend more money than they've ever have on even more frivolous things because they felt still the need to impress other people because they were insecure, right? And they lost that money, right? So again, this goes back to, can we reach everybody? Probably not, right? But it doesn't matter. If one person out of this podcast tonight decides to change their life, that's enough for me, right? Because if one person changes it, then that person's household changes and the kids that come out of that household change. The husband that comes out of that household change. And so this is how we get to spread through the whole community. I hope that we could touch more than one person, but I believe, I'll be happy if one person say, hey, you know what, this podcast forever changed my life.
Yeah, that would be dope.
I mean, to add to that, I think, once you start speaking to people's heartstrings, like for instance, if you have a parent that, they don't want to do it, you got to look at your children, and you got to think about your children's children. Is, do you want that child to be in that same cycle that you were? Do you want that child to go through life struggling or whatever it is that you were doing? Why not break that cycle? Why not be better than the last generation? Every generation should strive to be better than the last one. So, for those people who are just stagnant about and not wanting to get out of that mindset, it's just like, get out of yourself, stop thinking about it's just centered around me. Jeff said, pay yourself. But at the end of the day, you paying yourself actually lands to a bigger picture. So it actually goes beyond that. And I think that, when you have people who always will look at that, it's just like, well, even if you get out of your situation, even if you don't have, siblings or whatever it is, how can you impact the next person? And how are you going to be influential on that other person? Complete stranger, if it could be,
Very much, very much.
Makes sense. Lots of sense.
Great questions tonight, I'm telling you.
Oh, we try try to keep you engaged.
Oh man.
Again, you guys are doing something fantastic for the community. It really is good.
Thank you. I think we need an applause. Thank you very much.
Well, we we have the same, I guess, same mindset as you guys, trying to make some change and just give back and offer alternatives to what's out there. Because like people just don't know that lots of these things are available and attainable. Like they think they can't get to it, but in reality, yeah, you can. You can start trading small numbers and a policy for a little amount. So yeah, we need to get people on board.
Yeah.
And just imagine what it would do for our generation. Just imagine what it would do as far as, generational wealth. Just imagine this kind of impact, that our community would no longer be looked upon as just, spenders, right? Why don't we own the majority of the businesses in our community? Why is that, right? We've known for years that we've spent money on the hair stores and all that. Why don't we own those? Why don't we own the gas stations in our community? Why don't we own the produce store? Even the liquor store, even the cash stores. Why don't we own those stores? Right? Why don't we own banks where we could give our own people, loans?
Yeah. And, we're going through the whole process ourselves, and we understand that it's difficult. So, it's like, if it is difficult, how do we pool our resources together? So, us as a community, I think we always fight against each other sometimes. And, it's about coming together. I don't have to hate on the other person just because he has more than me, or that other person should not help me because they have more than me. Mm-hmm. So I always look at it as well. It's a community think. You have to help your next brethren in order for us to strive. You can't just sit there and watch what the Joneses have and you want what they have, but you're not willing to be able to take that community effort into building it. Mm-hmm. Everyone can have what the Joneses have if we actually cooperate and work together, and to be able to help each other out and change that mindset as well.
You said something very meaningful when you said how it's very difficult to do these things. Do you think that the amount of melanin in your skin is contributing to the difficulty in these things that you're trying to obtain? You can be real. Be real.
Yes, in some sense, I think it is. But I think what we are trying to do right now is so new. Especially when it comes to the sustainability plus the development side of it, mental development and personal development. I think that's where we try to get that's where the difficulty comes from. It's like trying to be that first mover. And there's not many players in the field, so that's kind of where our challenge comes from. But I think the things that we're trying to do is definitely possible. Does our color play a part? I don't think so. Maybe I'm naive.
Well, I was referring to like as far as when you were speaking about owning the businesses and the banks and things like that.
No, it's just for instance, like startup companies, it's just the aspect of the startup. I don't think that a lot of people want to get to that place where they want to fund a startup company from opening. So that's kind of where the difficulty comes from. But I think it's possible. I think that, and that's another thing that we kind of going through this process, we learn. And that's kind of where I was, touching base on the pooling together our community assets, right? That is something that I feel like is so needed, is that where can, if we have a resource that we can go to that, we have a pool of resources that will help individuals actually grow, that's a whole nother aspect that we can introduce to the community as well. Because we're going through this ourselves and trying to find resources and trying to find funding that we can't. It's like, okay, if we can't find it, then we have to create it.
Okay.
But simply put, sometimes it's important that the younger generation sees this. It's important. When President Obama became president, our young Black people started saying, hey, you know what? I could be in politics. I can be a president. When you see an owner of a bank that looks like you, you could say, hey, you know what, I could own that bank. You know, when you see these things in your community, it's impactful. I've done career day for 11 years in our local schools. And I'm proud of that. I tell everybody that they need to do career day every May. It's career day. And I teach kids about engineering, and now I teach kids about financial literacy. And it's amazing how these third graders, years later, come up to me, college level, and say, hey, I'm studying mechanical engineering because of you, right? Because of your presentation. You see, because they saw somebody that looked like them that was an engineer. I wasn't a basketball player. I wasn't a rapper. They saw something different, right? So it's important that, we expose our children to something different, right? So when they see business owners, then they can say, hey, you know what? I can do it. I can do it. And we have enough of that in our community, then we have the new norm, right? And that's the new normal. Then when kids grow up, right, it's, I was telling my daughters, there's tons of NBA players whose sons are playing in the NBA today, right? Their sons weren't born with a natural ability to play basketball, right? But those sons hung around their dad hung around other NBA players, and that became normal to them. So going to the NBA and playing on that high level, that was their normal. You see what I'm saying? So just like we have other groups out there, it's their normal. The mother's the CEO, the father's the CEO. Guess what the kid's gonna be? Kid's not gonna work for minimum wage somewhere. No. You see what I'm saying? Because that's their normal, right? So we need to create the new normal in our generation. That's the problem. We don't have that new normal yet.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point, because in the Caribbean and in the islands, that is the normal, to see people with us. But here in the States, it's not so.
It's not the normal.
It's not the norm. Exactly. And I think, exactly.
No, go ahead. What were you going to say? Go ahead.
I'm not even going to touch on that.
Okay. All right.
It's a difference, of course. The Caribbean,
different mentality.
The Caribbean, it's different. I was born and raised in the United States. My parents are from Haiti, right? I was born in Brooklyn, and I was raised in a Haitian household. It is different, because guess what? When the Caribbean, when the island people come here, just like the Chinese and the Indian, when they come here, they don't have anything to lean on. There's no welfare system for them. There's no unemployment for them, right? They got to go out there and work, right? Regardless of education, regardless of language, they got to go out there and work and earn, right? We grow up here in the States, and sometimes we could be spoiled, right? We could say, hey, I'm gonna sit back on the government and wait on stimulus checks and do those type of things because we have a cushion, and that makes us lazy sometimes. So
I agree with that.
Yep,
I do.
So that's all it is, in a kind way of saying it, but we just need to change that. But you're right, the Caribbean, I'm being a little bit biased, but the Caribbean, I applaud the Caribbean. I mean, it's just, they come in with a hardworking mentality. They taught us a lot, and I'm proud to be.
Yes,
that's what's
we
up.
all are.
Shout out to the Caribbean.
And Haitian food is probably the best Caribbean food. No. It's one of the best, along with Jamaican and along with all the other Caribbean.
I ain't gonna lie, it is good. It is good.
That rice.
Jamaican is the best. How dare you, Ron?
No, I didn't say it was the best. I mean, I love my Jamaican food, but I still like Haitian food as well.
How dare you?
That black rice.
Yeah,
man.
so I think, of course, because I'm an islander, I'm biased to that. But I think that's where my fight came from. It's like, you kind of have to have that mentality, as Jeff said. You don't have the luxury to say, hey, I'm here and I can go and collect a welfare check. You can't. and in most aspects, you have to go out there and work. So it's like, is that, as I said, if you strive to do better, you just have to. It's like that. It's a mental thing. It's a mentality thing. And I feel like we can get our people out of this rut that we're in. Like, as I said, I aged myself earlier. I'm an 80s baby. Like, I saw the 80s and the 70s, like Black folks and African Americans were on the rise. Like, our community were great.
Yes.
And of course, crack and cocaine and those epidemic just completely tore it apart. And I'm like, how do we get that core value back? How do we get that mentality where people are thinking about wealth, or thinking about owning the bodega on the side? How are you thinking about trying to, here, there's so many opportunities, especially in modern day. You can go and make money on Amazon easy. And you can turn your talent into money easily, even if you don't want to go work. We're trying to teach people that, Black and brown little kids, you don't have to strive to be the basketball player. You don't have to do that to be able to make money. There's so many other ways to do it. And you just have to think outside the box sometimes.
Yes.
And be able to get the resources to do it.
I think if we were ever able to change our mindsets, we would be so great. That's my firm belief.
My firm belief as well. And that's why for our developmental community, the first step in our development plan is a mental health cognitive assessment. You have to break down those mental barriers for you to even push forward. You can never have a successful plan if you're mentally not even prepared to take step number one. So, you have to be able to break those things down. You have to be able to deal with all of those deep-rooted issues that are keeping you, back from just doing very little simple things to just change your output.
All right.
Definitely.
Go see if we have any more questions on there.
Let's see if we have anything on the cloud.
It's 12 o'clock. Some people might be like,
it's a struggle.
bedtime.
It's probably a struggle right about now for people our age.
Yeah.
It's a struggle.
Exactly.
I don't know. Like, for me, I would like to see us get more involved in lower levels, like within the community, like those town hall meetings. Like, I've never been to one, and like, from what I see, like, my wife been to one, but it's mainly just the old folks, and they really don't have no vision. They in there. There's no young blood. There's nobody asking questions, And I think we could get our communities back if we were just to stick together and just spend the money within ourselves.
Funny you should say that. So when we started the foundation, that's exactly what we did. So we actually went to the community association meetings. We went to a lot of the political meetings that they were happening. Our focus at the time was going to be kind of the Brownsville area. So we were heavily involved in a lot of those meetings. And as you said, they're always, it's the elders in the community that are sitting there voicing their opinion. And in most cases, they're not actually seeing the fresh new thoughts and the fresh new voices and the fresh new ideas, because a lot of people are not even thinking twice about attending those meetings. And they could be life-changing, because they could be making all kinds of zoning decisions that are around you that you don't even know about.
They fight and change.
Exactly.
They're trying to keep it the way it is and not knowing that, we fighting. We want to try to change things and make it for the better.
Exactly. And sometimes, the older generation, they mean well, but, sometimes progression is needed.
Yeah.
You can't always look back and thinking that because you did it 50 years ago, it's going to be relevant to today. And there's some things that are, but if it's not working, do something different.
Change.
There might be a disconnect in some cases.
Yes.
Definitely. Well, guys, you got any more questions?
I
think
not at
this
the moment.
Been good. Once again, we want to apologize for our technical difficulties. We're still fairly new. This is about our seventh show?
Probably about 7.
You guys are doing great. Amazing.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'm loving it. You're
We're
inspiring me. You're inspiring us to kind of, get into this, get more involved in this platform, get more involved into that educational portion of it. And, this is the wave of the future. You have to kind of get yourself out. There's always a good way to put a face to the voice and, to your cause and to everything else as well. So it's amazing that you guys are pushing us out there for people such as myself to come and share what our platform is. And you guys have this platform to share your voices out there as well. So I love it.
I think
Thank
we
you.
all need to build one big network.
Oh, yeah, that's what I tell you. Pulling together. I'm about what these Chinese people do in this life. They pull together and eventually every single person has their own things.
Yeah,
So we need to start doing that in our community, and start thinking progressively.
Well, if you need people, we've interviewed, had somebody with credit, anger management. What else we had on here?
Like child abuse. We have a few people.
So if you're looking for people to incorporate into your movement, those would be the
yes.
people I would be reaching out to. You know what I mean? Because
Definitely.
you can always have them different levels and come together on finance and other issues, on mental health, and getting us to the place where we want to be.
Yeah, it's a pool. It's I think from day one they always say it takes a village. And they're so right, because, in all aspects of it, not just family alone, but, and trying to it's okay trying to do it by yourself. But, when you have that community effort and that community push and that support, you get so much more, you get so much further.
So, guys, how can we help you as well?
Yeah, that's true.
Well, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, we didn't think about that. You helping us? I mean, we working together right now, man, because you're getting your message out, and we have you on here getting the message out. That's what we're trying to do: provide outlets for people like yourself, for entrepreneurs, and anything positive that can impact our community. So you want to help us just get the word out, man. Tell them where you were at, and let them know when to catch the show, and follow us on IG. And yeah, man, and we could all help each other. Like I said,
Most
if you need
definitely. Yeah, most definitely. I think
contacts
you
or
guys are two
anything.
naturals.
Yeah, you're helping us with good content. And that's all we want, good
We
content.
just know each other a long time, man. Trust me.
Yeah, the chemistry is very good. So yeah,
The cameras, yeah. So we get along. We fight, but we get along. We love each other. You know.
Yeah,
what I
I'm
mean?
a week older than him. Exactly a week older.
But I'm 2 weeks wiser. So
Not.
I'll let you have.
Were you born late?
No.
Then we were supposed to be born in July or something, so
Tell
you
the
can't
truth.
be can't be wiser.
Every time we play the game, I'm Batman. You're Robin. Tell the truth.
You got to stand up for my cancer brother, though. You're a cancer.
No, man.
no.
No, I thought you're
Why would we want to do that?
Geminis.
Nah, well, we go back from making music, so I think it is natural for us from being on stage, and we went through our time when we were scared to be. Well, at least me, I used to be scared to hell to go on stage. So,
yeah.
but
that's the thing I love about these platforms is you can take your past lives and create something new out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's and it goes back in our thing. It's like it's never too late. You can always remix.
Yeah,
man.
Always remix it. Always.
This is
remix
age
it.
appropriate, man. The stage, my knees can't do the stage and stuff no more. So this type of stuff here, we can sit back, relax, talk important things, and elevate our minds.
Yeah, grown
Great.
folk things, grown folk stuff.
So once again, I just want to thank y'all for coming out, and
It's been a pleasure.
we
been a
definitely gonna
pleasure.
want to have y'all back.
And once again, give out your social media info again.
So the foundation is Elkia Foundation. Instagram, Facebook. We also have our website, elkiafoundation.org. My personal Instagram is Elkia _ or Elkia Smith. There's not many of me out there, so I think once you put it in there,
You gotta take that off
private. You'll find
I
me.
saw your Instagram. You gotta take that off private. You're a public figure now.
I took it off of private. I did. I made it public today.
Okay,
so,
good.
I'll have everybody.
People gonna be looking for you.
And you, Jeff.
It's Jeff and Joseph. Jeff and Joseph, and that's Facebook and Instagram.
Okay, we did have up on the screen, but I guess when we got shut down, it didn't come back up.
But-
Unfortunately.
I'll have it on there when I do I always do an edited version to put on YouTube. So
Yeah.
I'll definitely
Just make
get
me
something.
prettier, you know what I'm saying?
You guys are good. Don't even worry about it.
You're just right, man.
Thanks, team. We appreciate it. Again, God bless you guys.
And we appreciate
thanks
you
for having
guys
us.
for
Yeah,
being
man.
on the show, for real.
And keep up the good work.
And being patient
And
with
keep-
us in the early, because y'all came on early. Everything was fine, and we don't know what happened after that. But
Patience is our virtue.
I'm just
you know,
happy.
sometimes
I'm
you
just,
can't rush
So-
perfection. You can't rush creativity. You just gotta.
Yeah, I'll just say keep us posted on whatever you guys are up to, and like even with me on Instagram, I tell people tag me in something and I'll repost it, man. I'm here to try
Yes.
to get everybody, each one. I think we can all. It's enough of us out there that we could always make an impact.
Yeah.
You know what I
yes,
mean? If everybody just
definitely.
support everybody else, we could all get there, man.
yep.
Because every day it's just tons of entrepreneurs all over the web.
I don't know. We need to live
Very
like
true.
the 60s and 70s again. That's what we got to do.
That's what's up.
I so want to bring back the 70s.
Woodstock.
I mean, I'm an 80s baby, but I want to bring back the 80s and 90s. It was amazing. Amazing.
I take the 80s. I don't know about the 70s.
I'll take the 70s and the 80s.
I like bell bottom.
I'm thinking about that one TV with the one knob. I don't want that back.
No, the 8-track.
That TV you just go, you stand there and click it and go and just enjoy that.
In Jamaica, we had the antenna. We had the tip.
Yeah.
Rabbit ears.
I was actually remembering the other day. I was like, man, do you remember that freaking black screen that used to 12 o'clock on the dot?
Yeah.
You could not watch TV after 12. And I'm like, man.
Yeah. I don't want that
Some
back.
great days.
All right,
But
you
thanks,
guys.
guys.
Thank you.
Have
Once
a
again,
good night.
you guys have
You
a
too.
good night. This is the Here Goes Nothing podcast on the Friday night live stream. Are we playing music or we shutting down?
Hey, what you want to do? What time is it?
It's after 12, almost 12.
Awesome.
I guess we could probably just shut down. 'cause it's
All right,
late.
then we shut it down for the night. Once again, you guys take care.
And thanks again.
Night.
Bye-bye.